Hello again, this is Preheat. Welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. So today we're going to be looking at how these specs for Mage compare against each other. This is a question I keep getting, how's Fire, how are the other hero talent builds for Arcane, how do these compare against each other? So we're going to go ahead and cover this information today, but first I need to give you a quick disclaimer. So this is still beta, right? There's still probably going to be a lot of changing. The tuning is still ongoing. I'm sure we'll even see tuning in Heroic Week and even after Mythic is out. So all of this stuff is subject to change. And by the time you watch this video, it may just be completely different. But as of today, I'm going to show you where everything is at so that you can get an idea of where the damage is at. But I also want to give you the context for how the play styles are, because I feel like that's the more important thing, is like how the specs actually feel, because tuning obviously is going to change. But the play style and the talents that you can run and that sort of stuff, that is what we will probably be stuck with. So it's important to also note that too. Also, I want to acknowledge these names here. I have them up on the screen. These are the folks who have been working on either implementing the classes in SimC, so getting those so they actually work so we can play them, or they've been working on the APLs so that the specs know how to play. Obviously, I tool around with this a little bit too, but most of the credit goes to the other folks who are working on this, especially names here at the top. So let's go ahead and jump into my first comparison. Okay, so here we have single target. And I went ahead and made this look a little better so that you can kind of get an idea of which hero talent build it's running and which spec it is. But this is single target as of today. So obviously Sun Fury is way ahead of the next runner-up. This is a spec that's way harder to play than the others. If you compare it against like Spellslinger Frost or even like Spellslinger Arcane, Sun Fury is far more technical and requires more casting. So it kind of makes sense that it should do more damage, but obviously the amount of damage it's doing is way, way too high. Comparisons between the specs, you can see that obviously there's a problem here. If we compare like Fire against Sun Fury Arcane, there's just like no world where this is going to stay this way, right? But I still want to cover like how these specs actually play. So in a raid setting, Sun Fury Arcane is the GOAT. It's going to be 100% the way to go unless something changes, which it probably will. But Spellslinger Frost is actually really fun, and it's extremely mobile in its cooldowns. You have some nice talent variety. As you can see, you can play Death's Chill, you can play Ray of Frost, you can play Cold Front. These are all fairly close in single target. And Frost can also pick up AoE talents without having to give up too much single target. That's also true for Sun Fury and also Spellslinger, honestly. Spellslinger is pretty easy to play, I'd say, and also very, very mobile, gives up very, very little for AoE. So these specs are all very, adaptable, and I would say that they're all very fun. But obviously, if you're looking into playing Sun Fury Arcane, you're going to have to study up a little bit. But I do have a new video on that if you want to check it out. It's going to be up here on the screen. You can just click that link. But anyways, moving down the list, we also have Frostfire Frost. So you can see that Frostfire Frost is quite a bit behind Spellslinger Frost. It's definitely in need of some tuning. The talents for Frostfire just don't really seem to give much damage. That's kind of true for Fire as well. So in both cases, I don't really recommend playing Frostfire until they tune this thing up. But obviously, if you want to play that because that's just your jam, then you can totally go with that. But it's probably going to need a little bit of a boost. And I think a lot of that's probably just Living Bomb not doing enough damage. Like for Frostfire, Fire Meteor is doing a lot more damage with the Comet Storm than, like, for instance, for Frostfire Frost, the meteors that you get for free with your Comet Storm, they just don't really add up. So Frostfire is just getting kind of gimped by that. So it's unfortunate, but hopefully tuning fixes that. And then at the very bottom, we have Fire. So people keep asking me, like, where's the Fire guide? I already made a Fire guide, and honestly, like, just look at how much damage it's doing. Fire is super undertuned right now. I don't know where Blizzard's target is for where the tuning should end up, but I feel like if we use this as an example and we look at other classes, maybe the average should be like 1.3 mil in best in slot, maybe 1.4 mil, maybe Spellslinger's like where everything should be. So no matter how you look at it, I think Fire is pretty undertuned. I know some tank specs are even doing more damage than Fire right now. So I assume that that's just a tuning issue. But a lot of it comes down to the tuning on Living Bomb. I would say that in general, Fire's playstyle is actually very solid, and it feels really fun to play. You have nice execute, you have a cheat death. Obviously, Arcane also has execute, but I would say that Fire's package, like the actual kit itself, if you just ignore the damage, if you ignore the tuning, and you just look at everything else, it's actually really, really solid. The issue is the damage just isn't there. And especially if you look at Frostfire Fire, that is just down bad, beyond belief. So yeah, definitely in need of some love, but I will be putting out a Fire guide once we get to release, because I'm sure that they're going to buff this thing up at some point, so we'll be able to play it again. All right, so moving on, these are the same specs that you saw in that graph. This is just where they show up in SimC. And I want to just very briefly touch on this stuff. So like if we go to some Fury Arcane, you can see a lot of the time is being spent casting Arcane Blast. Obviously, this is single target, so you're going to be spending more time blasting, but if it were AoE, you would spend a lot more time barraging. So it's going to be a little bit more mobile if there's any sort of cleave involved. But yeah, that's how it kind of shakes up. And then for Frost, I mean, you're pretty much just Ice Lancing, right? So you do have the Glacial Spikes, you have the occasional Frostbolt, but for the most part, you're just Ice Lancing, so you're very mobile. If we drop down to Spellslinger, you can see that we are also spending a lot of time Arcane Blasting, but obviously this is also going to be more mobile the more targets you add. If we take a look at Frostfire, you can see that Frostfire definitely takes a lot more time casting spells, but obviously a lot of these Frostfire bolts are empowered, so not all of them are going to be a cast time, but it is definitely going to be a little bit less mobile than Spellslinger. And then if we look at Sunfury Fire, this is Unleashed Inferno, so this is not plain SKB, so this is super mobile, right? Like basically the only time we're having to stand still is whenever we're casting Fireball. All the rest of this is instant cast, so extremely mobile spec, very fun to play. Hopefully the damage gets increased. And then at the very bottom, we have Frostfire, which does play SKB still, so you will be using Pyroblast as a hard cast some of these. You'll also obviously be casting some Frostfire bolts too, so it's a little bit less mobile than Sunfury. But I will say, like, with SKB, the new SKB, and with just how many instant casts Frostfire has, honestly, it's not too bad. One of the talents you have, Excess Fire, is going to make it so whenever your Living Bomb goes off, you get cooldown reduction on your Phoenix Flame, so it actually gets a decent amount of time casting Phoenix Flames. But yeah, that's how they shake up in single target. So let's go ahead and move over to AoE. So I went ahead and prepared these talent loadouts. I didn't include every single possible loadout, but I did try to hit the big ones. You can see here that Arcane Spellslinger is overtaking Frost here with the AoE profile, and it's just doing a ton of AoE damage. Obviously, below that, we have Frost, but you'll see that the gap between Frostfire Frost and Spellslinger is definitely a little bit tighter here, and I think that Frostfire Frost can actually definitely perform well in AoE if they just buff Living Bomb even just a little bit. That could definitely give it a pretty big edge. And then below that, we have the fire profiles that are using AoE talents. So stuff like Flame Patch and Quick Flame. So you can see here that the Ignite talents and the Flame Strike talents are all fairly similar, but obviously as you increase the target count, the Flame Strike profiles will definitely get an advantage there, but obviously also going into those will cost you single target. So it may not necessarily be worth it. So hopefully this video gives you more context into the current tuning of things. Again, this is going to change, right? This is still beta. The expansion is coming out soon, but even after the expansion comes out, there will still probably be tuning, but hopefully this informs you more about which spec you should be learning. And honestly, you should probably just know how to play all of them because we don't know which one is going to be the best whenever it actually comes down to the raid. By the time you get to the last boss of Mythic, right, each person here watching this video, you may get there at a different time, and there might be a different subset of tuning that we end up with. But I definitely just recommend studying up on all the things. That way, no matter what the outcome is, you will be prepared for it. So anyways, that's going to be it for today. So thank you all for watching. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more of my content, be sure to subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.